So I think initially it was this real desire to create this cross-cultural piece of work, something that many different cultures and people on the same playing field could come together. I didn't know at that point if it would succeed, whether anyone would be interested. I set myself a goal of 10 years to do it.
Was there any particular story that you personally really connected with?
One of the most joyful and kind of uplifting for me was the experience with the Bedouin women in Sinai in Egypt, who live very remotely in tiny little dwellings and mountainside villages. And then I got to go and meet them. We had this celebration in the Sinai desert, and we had one of the women wore the dress, and then the others were dancing around and doing this incredible traditional Bedouin scarf dance. And it was like under the desert stars. And I was just like, oh my goodness, this is absolutely like just perfect.
We do have a lot of young artists and designers that listen to this podcast. And the question I think they would have is, okay, we have this idea. How do we get that funding?
If you can involve community and collaboration, that really seems to help in terms of funding. If it has a kind of greater sense of purpose and good.
We're told all these things in terms of the trends that we need to dress like and be like, and then what ends up happening is there's a large number of people that are wearing all these clothing that is not really giving them enough.
Yeah, almost like people just kind of walking around like robots, all in this same cheap synthetic clothing. There's no individuality. Yeah, on one hand you've got the dress being slowly broken down and sent around the world. It was always fine going out, but coming back in often had issues with customs. So like the panel had like 4 months to come out of customs. The panel from Kenya ended up like getting lost. There's been loads of stories just in that.
Oh my God. For 14 years, Kirstie Macleod stitched together a vision that transcended borders, cultures, and time. The red dress, an extraordinary hand-embroidered gown, became a canvas for over 380 artisans from 51 countries, weaving together stories of resilience, heritage, and empowerment. Constructed out of 87 panels of burgundy silk dupion, the dress has earned a place in the Guinness World Records 2025 for the largest collaborative embroidery project. Join us for a conversation on creativity, perseverance, and the transformative power of embroidery in storytelling and social change. Stay with us till the end of this episode, where we'll be sharing some powerful moments from the Red Dress exhibition film, a deeply moving documentary by Black Bark Films. It beautifully captures the depth and the impact of the red dress. Thank you so much, Kirstie, for joining us today. I am so excited to dive right into this project, you and the conversation around this project. My first question to you is, what sparked the idea?
So it was the culmination of lots of different strands that all came together at a particular time. Probably the most significant was that I lived abroad all my life in different countries. So I was exposed to so many different cultures and traditions and ways of being, voices, textiles, art. And it really ignited in me this ongoing desire to just keep on connecting and reaching out to different people, communities, cultures. So that was kind of like the base layer. Then I've always been very preoccupied by women's rights and issues of social justice and inequality, plus all my kind of training in art and textiles and all these kind of things. So I was given the opportunity to create a new piece of work, and I was given funding to do so, which was amazing, because usually you create a piece of work in your mind and then you might spend months or even years trying to get the funding for that. Mm-hmm. So it was completely reversed, and it just allowed me this incredible space to dream. And I remember I had the phone call, and then I went to a cafe and I just sat down and sketched it in probably less than a minute. Just everything just came through. And it just brought together everything that was important to me. And it was this really kind of simple idea of trying to bring people together rather than separating people out, whilst kind of celebrating cross-cultural dialogues, connection, community, and also creating a platform for women's voices, but predominantly women's voices to be shared. But I didn't know at that point if it would succeed, whether anyone would be interested, whether it would work. I set myself a goal of 10 years to do it, so it was always going to be a long project. But little by little, gradually the momentum grew. But it was really tough in the first 7-8 years, really. And I didn't have any income until 2020. So yeah, it was a passion project.
Yeah. So when you began, you had this idea or this sketch, and you had this idea of bringing people together and communicating communicating the story. How did you piece this all together? Like, what was your next step? What did you do once you had that sketch?
So I went and bought some fabric. That was initially the first thing I did. I happened to be going to Paris soon after, very synchronistic. I'm not usually there. And so I went to this big textile fair, and in there I found this incredible supplier of silk, which I believe all come from India. And I spent like many hours just kind of, in there, just looking at all the colors and textures. And they had the facility to embroider a base layer onto the silk. And put on the edging, the scalloped edging. So I had a section of the red dress fabric worked on there as well. So that was like the initial starting point, just to create that base, just to, because a roll of 50 meters of silk is quite daunting. So I was like, get a section of it worked on a machine, then back to England. And then it was just all guns blazing from there. I had to get the first iteration of the dress done very quickly because it was scheduled to be installed for in the art fair in Dubai. So that was a very, very quick, I think it was a month. The whole thing was just all done within a month. But then when it came back from Dubai, that's where I then took it to pieces, or most of it to pieces, and then gradually rebuilt it in the way that you see it now. And that's when I think the magic then really began to happen, because as soon as I began collaborating with individuals and with groups, and their voices were, being imbued onto the fabric, that's when all the magic began to happen. Up until that point, it was just me and an idea. But as soon as people began to get involved, then it began to fly.
How did you identify these communities or the people that you, kind of had embroider on the piece?
So I had quite a few useful networks. I used to tutor at the Royal School of Needlework in London. So I had a helpful kind of group there. And then also I'd been working as a fine artist in London for about 8 years by that point. So I had a really great kind of creative network, and people kind of knew people, or, whatever. The main source of inspiration was my parents, because they had traveled so much all over the world, all the time. So they had so many contacts in different places. So I just wrote, so many hundreds, thousands of emails to people. But at that point, I didn't have the experience that I have now. I didn't have the skill and understanding of how to manage a project like this. And I was learning so much as I went. There was no real budget. It was all just winging it, really. But, over the years, it became much easier to kind of navigate. And also I just had to learn a lot, and I got the skills that I needed to do it. And I think as soon as it began to be written about in the press, or it had a particular exhibition, then each step helped. But it did take a long time.
As a creative and as an artist, how did you, like you said, it was difficult to kind of get it going, but how did you handle the business side of things? Because there's one part of it, which is the idea, but the second part of it is actually getting it going, the logistics of it, the PR with it. Like, how did you deal with all of that? Did you have a team? Did you do it by yourself?
Yeah, it's always just been me. I have someone that does the website with me, but otherwise it is just me. So I think what's made it possible is just this burning passion that I have for this project, and I've always had that. So in the tough times, that's seen me through, and also a real sense of responsibility to the embroiderers that have shared their stories. But the business side, it's not easy, especially accounting and all this kind of stuff.
It is.
I think yeah, I think it's all part of it. And I can see the value in, for instance, Instagram has helped so much. So I've really spent the time trying to understand that and how to use that in the best possible way. And I also just have a really great community of people, even if I don't know them personally, but, on email or something, that help. I can send an email for advice. I can get opinions from this person. So many people want to help. That's the really lovely thing about this project. I get emails all the time from people with suggestions or advice or guidance. And I think it's just been a process, definitely.
Yeah.
But I spend most of my time on my computer writing funding applications. That's literally most of my life.
Oh my God.
I get pockets of like really amazing experiences and trips to far-flung places, and I get to do embroidery and things, but most of my time is on my computer, which is frustrating. And I would love for that balance to be slightly more addressed, but it's all necessary.
So you said that you did get somebody right up front say, that they wanted to do this project or whatever.
Yes.
How did that kind of work out? We do have a lot of young artists and designers that listen to this podcast.
Yes.
And the question I think they would have is, okay, we have this idea. How do we get that funding? What is the process like, and how do we get that ball rolling?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, the first funding I got was just literally an act of God. I don't really know how that came in, but obviously it was meant to, because that's what began the project. And then for the next however many years, there was just repeated refusals for funding, and I also used to try for sponsorship, and that didn't happen. And I think because the dress was at that point really sitting between the art world and the fashion world, it was a very tenuous place, which on one hand was great because it was unique, so it used to get quite a lot of press, but on the other hand, people didn't really know how to place it, so funding was tricky. But over the years, the kind of presentation of the dress and the intention kind of left the art gallery museum spaces, and as soon as I began taking the dress out into the world more, like actually getting to the countries, connecting with survivors of war and addicts and women living in extreme poverty, that's when the world really began to take notice of it, and that's when it became easy to get funding. And also just experience and me in my writing. I didn't have the understanding of how to write funding applications, because the last one I wrote was 75 sides of paper. It took like 6 months to write it.
Oh my God.
If there's budget, like get someone to help you. Definitely, because it is a whole different way of using language in England anyway. There was repeated knockbacks, but you just have to keep going. Because otherwise what's the point? Like you just have to, and you will get that moment. You will get that something will change, something will come in. And I also really believe that if you get a knockback, it's for a very good reason. It's not quite where you're meant to be at. You can try a different path, or get some advice from a different person, or place your work in a slightly different category. But I think if you can involve, in England anyway, if you can involve community and collaboration, that really seems to help in terms of funding. In England, it's far harder to get funding for just your own solo practice. If you can involve other people, and if it has a kind of greater sense of purpose and good, then it becomes easier. But also, once you get one, it's easier then to get the next one. It's little steps.
Yeah. How did you get yourself through all of these years? 14 years, was it? And all through COVID and all of that, these difficult times. Of course, I was just thinking about this while I was driving here, and I was thinking that if you're really passionate about something, you'll find ways to kind of keep going, and somehow you kind of just have the courage to kind of keep at it. What was something that kind of kept you going? What was that that sustained you all these 14 years? That's a long time to do it.
Yeah, I'm very determined in myself. I'm a Virgo, and once I have my sight set on something, I don't stop. So I think that's definitely helped. I think I know 100% that it's this feeling of responsibility and of like, I guess, love really for the embroiderers. And some of the stories that they've shared and some of the words in the stitches, are so profound and so moving, and the trust that they've put in me and in the project to be able to give that, is so humbling. So yeah, in those times where I was like, I just don't know how to do this, or how am I going to get this paid for, or whatever, then I just hear their voices, and it's like, okay, I can do this, and just keep going.
Yeah. What was your intention? Of course, like it is to tell the stories, but what was something that you wanted to, what outcome did you want from doing this project? Was there anything specific, or did you just want to communicate these stories?
So I think initially it was this real desire to create this cross-cultural piece of work, something that many different cultures and people on the same playing field could come together, without prejudice and hierarchies and all this rubbish. It was just this like totally level platform. But over the years, and just from feedback I had from supporting workers within the charities I was connecting with, and one woman said to me, who supports women in DR Congo and Rwanda through Kirstie, she said the women are changed since they've done the embroidery on the dress. They finally feel like they've been listened to, and they just love the fact that their story is being shared with people around the world. And I think, of course, I would have their feelings and emotions in my mind, but I'd never had it given to me in that concise way of actually the impact that experience had on them. And from that moment on, I was like, right, I want to dedicate and really use the dress to try and help shine lights on, valuable initiatives and charities. And so then from that moment on, I was very focused on using it as a platform for voices to be shared and amplified, and also listened to, because I think there's one thing of sharing your story, but there's also, having the space and the place to have it listened to actually to fully hear it. That's a different thing as well. So you're trying to kind of create a space for both in wherever the dress goes, like really making sure people can access it and can hear it and to feel it.
Yeah. Was there any particular story that you personally really connected with? Of course, every single one of those stories is valuable and, has made an impact on you. But is there, like, if I ask you that question, is there something that really stands out for you?
Oh, there's probably about 15 that like literally just melt in my heart. I don't know which one to pick. Let's.
You can tell me a few if you like.
Yeah. So I think one of the most joyful and kind of uplifting for me was the experience with the Bedouin women in Sinai in Egypt, who live very remotely in tiny little dwellings and mountainside villages. And this remarkable woman called Salima Gabali supports between 400 and 500 women living in poverty through the creation of handicrafts. So they worked on the largest panel of the dress. It's 4 meters by 2 meters, which is now being cut up into lots of smaller pieces. But just the whole interaction with them, the whole process, the whole way that 50 women came together to work on this panel over a month, and they brought so much of themselves and so much of their kind of Bedouin heritage is like really sewn in, like motifs, beautiful motifs all over. And then I got to go and meet them, a few years, 7 years after they'd created it. And we had this celebration in the Sinai desert. And we had one of the women wore the dress, and then the others were dancing around and doing this incredible traditional Bedouin scarf dance to like tribal music, all this drumming. And it was like under the desert stars. And I was just like, oh my goodness, this is absolutely like just perfect, like the most incredible experience. But also what it brought to them. So then we went to Cairo and did an exhibition at the British Embassy, and it was aligned with the Egyptian Fashion Awards. So Fancina got to show all their work on that platform. They were listened to. They were given a standing ovation by this whole like auditorium full of people. They were on the news, the press, the TV. And it was just this whole kind of process with them, with the dress. And I loved that. And then Other ones that kind of have been very difficult but very important, have been connecting with survivors of conflict-related sexual violence in both Kosovo and Bosnia and Herzegovina. So in both of those situations, as well as trying to hold space for the women, it was really about shining a light on what had happened, because so much of the world, and definitely including England, really didn't have a fraction of the understanding of what the women had to go through. And I shared lots of social media posts with, not in detail, but with enough understanding of what had happened. And so many people shared these posts and were like, I had no idea this happened. Why does the news not tell us this? You know, I think it's, again, just giving a voice. It's trying to, just give everyone that respect and understanding. And, you know, I think if the dress can now do that, I mean, that's just an amazing thing. So all these things just keep igniting the desire and the drive to just keep going, really.
Yeah, I love that. Where has the dress traveled? I know that we had it in India recently, but is there another time that is going to be coming to India? Where is it at currently? Where do you usually exhibit the dress?
So the dress is kind of goes anywhere, really, everywhere. It's always open to invitation, but alongside that, I'm trying to get the dress back to all of the commissioned embroiderers who haven't seen the dress; they only saw their panel, so that they can have their moment exhibiting their work alongside the dress in their chosen venue in their country. So I'm about halfway through that. I've got there's 141 of them. 50 were in Egypt, which I have done now, so I've got about another 70 to go. So probably take me another 10 years to do that.
Wow. That's stressful.
It's exciting as well. So currently the dress is is in the Pacific Northwest of America, in the Quilt and Fiber Art Museum there in Lacona. It's there for another 6 weeks. It's been there for 6. And then going to be coming back to quite a few different exhibitions around the UK. But yeah, I mean, we've traveled to Mexico, Italy, France, Egypt, Kosovo, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Germany, India. So this was very exciting. This was exciting because, first of all, I love India and I've been many times, and I think in a past life I used to live there. But also it was the opportunity to return to Hampi, where I was traveling about in 2002. And I had all these remarkable experiences there, including connecting with Lambani women. And my interactions with them really spurred on a huge amount of interest into this non-verbal communication through embroidery, because we couldn't speak the same dialect, me and these women, but we just used to embroider together. And it was a huge part of the inspiration to the red dress. So to be able to go back to Hampi and connect with Lambani women again was really lovely. The whole experience of working with Hampi Art Labs was just a dream, like from the incredible space that it is to all the staff who I'm still in touch with regularly. The whole thing was just brilliant. And so through them, hopefully, Dress and I will be coming back at least once, if not twice, in the next 2 years. So we're making plans at the moment, but hopefully Delhi and hopefully Mumbai. That's trust.
That would be amazing. I feel like there's just so much. I think the Indian Art Fair is going on right now in Delhi, and maybe that would be such a beautiful platform to exhibit it.
Yes.
But I do feel like there would be a lot of people that would want to definitely take a look at it.
I hope so. Yeah. It was because obviously Hampi is fairly remote, but a lot of people did come to it. But what I was blown away with was the amount of press that the dress was from all over the country. So yeah, hopefully we can get it to at least one of the big cities to allow access to more people. But I'll be continuing to work with Hampi Art Labs and the JSW Foundation. Because we're pretty connected now, and they understand the dress, and they've got such a fantastic kind of outreach project. Like they do so much for their communities. And I got to visit lots of wonderful women, communities of women being supported by them, like from weavers, banana weavers in Kashkinda and Aygundi. And yeah, it was just, there's so much going on, so much more than just the gallery space, which is very, very aligned to the dress. So yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. Tell us about your experience with the Lambani women in, that we have here in South India. What was that like? Because I did see you write about it, a fair amount all over the place, but I'd love to hear it from you and what your experience was like. Yeah.
So I think initially, so I'm trying to think how old I would have been. I mean, early 20s when I was there initially. And so there was this huge kind of desire in me to just learn about embroidery and textiles. So straight away, just in how they are adorned in clothing and in all the bells and jingles and everything they wear. I was completely fascinated by them. And it was interesting. Wherever I traveled to, I just kept coming across groups of women like this. And I was just really, really interested in, so just not only the skill of the embroidery itself, but how much it kind of features in their tradition and in their culture and in their adornments and in their garments. Like it's almost like a way of living, I think. Very different to the UK. We don't have anything like that here. So I think just this kind of unfelt or labeled connection to them, just in terms of that, really. But the more I spent time with them, and it was, at a distance, it wasn't like I was, living with them or anything, but I just became so fascinated. And it's still in with me now. And I've actually been learning Lambani stitches this week because I do various workshops in England. And I love the stories that are held within that, and the meaning and how free and how like soulful their work is. So when I was back last year, I got to go and connect with Lambani women in the Sandor. There's like a whole centre there. And so they're supported to just carry on creating their amazing work, and then it gets kind of put onto a platform for a more global audience so they can earn a living. So it's just lovely. It's like protecting their heritage.
Yeah, how lovely. Thank you for listening to the IKKIVI Podcast. If you're enjoying our episodes, consider supporting us by visiting www.ikkivi.com. That's IKKIVI.com. Since 2015, IKKIVI has been thoughtfully curating modern fashion infused with Indian heritage, bringing you hand-picked pieces that blend tradition with contemporary elegance. Our passionate venture celebrates the vibrancy of contemporary design while preserving India's rich craftsmanship, creating stunning and ethical silhouettes you'll love. Our podcast is another passion project driven by our dedication to sharing meaningful stories. It is self-funded and will always be free to listen to. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for being here. Now let's get back to the episode. I'd love to talk to you about you as a person and kind of where you come from and what your experience was like growing up. What was your family life like? Because you said your parents were a large part of the influence that you had. Can you tell us a little bit about that and growing up and how that has kind of helped you or defined who you are today?
Sure. So I'm one of three sisters. I'm the eldest, but we're only about 15 months apart. So we're basically like triplets. Yeah. So we've, I think, we're all very worldly. We just love the whole traveling thing and love and feel very comfortable in different cultures. So we have a very close family, but for a large part of, so from 9 and 10 onwards, we were at boarding school in England. So that was difficult. It was lovely in some ways, but it was very difficult being separated from my parents, although it brought the three sisters extremely close together. And it helped us to, really kind of deep dive into who we were and identities. We did a lot of work because it kind of brought up a lot, going to boarding school. But yeah, so I think on one hand, like a very, very close, nurturing family, but then very expansive experiences. And I think they've always been, my parents have always been very supportive of my creativity. So from age 4, apparently I announced, I'm going to be an artist. I'm not doing anything else. And I was never interested in academics work really. Like just I was quite sporty, but yeah, art was always my thing. I always struggled with words as a child.
Mhm.
I just couldn't get them out. I couldn't write them. I just always had to draw and paint. So that was always my language. But yeah, I think my experiences of just living in so many different cultures was huge. I think I remember the biggest contrast was we were living in Nigeria and then we moved to Japan. I mean, of the two countries most extremely different in the world, it's probably two of those. But within those countries, within all the countries, you know, they all have their own relationship to divinity and to ceremony and to tradition and to ancestors and all these things that I find so interesting. So when people say, "Oh, where are you from?" Like I never really know what to say. It's like, well, I kind of English, but I don't really feel like I'm that English. I feel like I'm kind of just spread out all over the place, really.
So what allowed you to travel to these countries with your parents?
My father used to work in energy, so he began working within oil, and he moved into hydrogen and then renewables. So, like his job in Canada was he was running a biofuels company, so turning straw into ethanol and such like. So he's retired now, but he still is a consultant for renewable energy. It's quite cool, yeah.
Fascinating. So not really in the art space.
Not at all. No, not at all. My mum was a nurse, so no, very different.
Yeah.
In fact, yeah, there's no artists. My dad's a very good drawer, though. Like it's definitely in there. And one of my sisters is very, very creative, so it's coming from somewhere.
Yeah. So were you doing something else alongside this project? What was that?
So there's so many different things. I mean, initially when I started, I was also waitressing in London. I've also done lots of teaching. I'm also a qualified Kundalini yoga meditation teacher. So I've done so basically teaching and yoga alongside art. So I don't really have the time at the moment and haven't done for quite a few years. But early on in the project, I was also making my own artwork and selling that through galleries and things. So I'll get back to that when the dress kind of calms down a bit, but it's just too busy.
So right now, is that the main thing for you?
Yeah, it's full time at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah,
wow.
Really full time. Yeah, and it has been I had a few months actually last year when the dress was in America where I managed to do some of my own painting again. But otherwise, it's kind of been about 7 years of pretty much full time.
So the first half was not full time, and the second half was full time.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, but just anything. So yeah, yoga and teaching really were the other things that I do.
How exciting! Did you study fine art? Did you study fashion? What was that like? Your education?
Yes, I did first of all a foundation degree, which is what you have to do in England to be able to pursue art. So it's like a condensed year of doing everything, all the different disciplines of art. So I did that in London, and then I chose into textiles. So I did a textiles degree, but it was an incredible degree. It was like very framed in fine art, which is why I was so drawn to it. So it was very little kind of repeat floral patterns. It was much more about like blowing up concrete and making films. It was just really out there, the whole course. And that's what really taught me what textiles could be. You know, it can be very, very exciting. It's materiality. It's whatever you want to make it. So after that, I then went back to London and did an MA in visual language, which just like really helped me hone my kind of practice. And I was always fascinated with textiles. And then during all my training, I became fixated on garments and the relationship of garments to a wearer and how it can be both really kind of empowering and, you know, uplifting and used to, you know, perform the self, you know. But also it can be constricting, and it can make, you know, like when you wear an outfit you don't feel comfortable in, like how icky that makes you feel, you know, how clothing can also have this kind of effect. And then looking into kind of body modification through garments and corsets, you know, all these kind of things. So yeah, just many years of just really kind of deep diving into what garments really are. But I made a whole series of pieces of installation work and film work, all using dresses as a way of communicating kind of unsaid emotions or feelings. And the red dress, I think, is number 7, really, of that.
Yeah. I'm going to jump on what you just said about what the idea of wearing clothing is and wearing apparel and what that means. We're so we're told all these things in terms of the trends that we need to dress like and be like different celebrities, and we have to, not have to, but whatever, social media kind of, or magazines always talk about these certain styles. And then what ends up happening is there's a large number of people that are wearing all these clothing that is not really giving them enough. They're just doing it to fit in, or that of whatever the social construct. So I'd love to hear more about your thoughts on that and what more you have in terms of understanding where we're at as a society and where we probably are heading towards. Because I'm optimistic about it. I feel like there is a lot more of us now dressing for ourselves and dressing for our own comfort and our own well-being, and to kind of represent who we are. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on, where we're at with that.
I would agree. I also feel optimistic. I think certainly in England, there is this real movement now towards craftsmanship and integrity and sustainability and ethical practices, particularly in garment construction. So yeah, definitely. But it's expensive. This is the thing. So people are, struggling so much for just to pay the bills. It's ridiculous. So, people generally can't afford to pay for a beautifully, authentically sustainable produced pair of hand sewn trousers. Certainly in England, and they would much rather go to a chain fashion store, fast fashion store, and get something for a £5. So there is still work to do. But yes, I would really agree that the state of things has been pretty dire, and just almost like people just kind of walking around like robots, all in this same cheap synthetic clothing. There's no individuality, there's no persona. It's, as you say, just like this kind of insatiable desire to just fit in. That kind of ties into a whole load of like mental health and self-worth in itself. But yeah, hopefully, I think, all the awareness now around all these fast fashion issues, and I think people are becoming more educated and more informed. I think social media has been really great for that, actually.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we're going to see like a shift now towards the other direction of, and uplifting the people that create the garments, as well, giving them a voice.
I do feel like this intertwined idea of mental health and the way you dress and making multiple choices, whether it's fashion or food or whatever it is, there is that like really intricate connection between it all. Because I've noticed myself personally, for example, like when I was in college, it was like fast fashion was everything to me. I was uneducated about what was going on in the industry. Fast forward all these years, and now there's so much awareness. There's so much maturity and growth that has happened over these years, and over, running IKKIVI and all of that, that now is when I'm slowly realizing that with confidence comes the ability to dress the way you want to dress. Of course, you have these voices in your head somewhere in the back where you hear, oh, you shouldn't wear this to this or whatever it is. But you're kind of still at this stage after so many years is when you're now kind of fighting that and trying to become more and more aware of it and making those choices. I don't know if that was the case for you, but like, I don't know. I just feel like there's so much education that can still happen in this space about, confidence and all of those things. So like a fashion business is not just a fashion business. I feel it kind of has all kinds of aspects to it.
Yeah, huge responsibility actually that very few of them really embrace. It's a fascinating topic I could speak on and think about for hours, actually. And the whole relationship with mental health is massive. But yeah, you see, like in England, different groups of kind of people who dress in particular ways to assert certain values or belief systems. whether it's like kind of like a goth group, or it's like the metalheads, or
Yeah.
it's the folk lot or whatever. And that's still quite prominent in England. I don't know how it is in India. But yeah, I think I remember, so I haven't followed fashion since I was probably in my early 20s, which has been quite a relief actually, because the pressure of like, looking through fashion magazines and looking at like, oh gosh, I should be looking at that, and oh no. So now I'm obsessed with color. So what informs my clothes is much more about the colors than it is about anything else. But also just now saving up to buy something that's beautifully made and handmade. Ethical and all these things. I'm now at that point where I really get that. It's really nice because you're going to have that pair of trousers 50 years, not 2 months.
Yeah. And you feel so great wearing something that is made like that, made ethically, made with so much thought and intention. You just feel great in it.
Yeah. You do. Yeah, all the way down to your core.
Yeah. So I want to quickly go back to the red dress a little bit. I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
One is about what the logistics was like. How did that kind of work? So was it like, if you can spell it out for us, what happened like over these years? Where did it go? How did it come back? Who pieced it together? What was that like?
Yeah, this is a big topic. On one hand, you've got the dress being slowly broken down and sent around the world. That was initially kind of gently cut up, and then I put a blank panel in, so the dress could always be exhibited. So there was never just like pieces all over the in storage. A blank piece would go in if a piece was going out. So that was constantly in progress all the time. And then, so with that itself, you've got loads of issues. So I used to use like Parcel Force, FedEx, that kind of thing. It was always fine going out, but coming back in often had issues with customs. So like the panel had like 4 months to come out of customs. The panel from Kenya ended up like getting lost. There's been loads of stories just in that.
Oh my God.
And then as the years went by, the dress, when I finally set the final iteration of the dress with my collaborator Gail in 2019, so then the dress is only being worked on as a full garment. So then, and that was at the time when I was then being invited to do museum exhibitions and also just to come out to visit charities and things. So suddenly there was money coming in, so that the dress and I would travel together. But alongside the tangible dress, you've got things like payments to embroiderers. Like that in itself could take weeks to actually process. Now I use a really great company called Wise, and it's much quicker because all the commissioned embroiderers get an annual donation each year from proceeds of all the exhibitions and the merchandise. So as long as the dress is out there doing her thing, I think that they will be compensated fairly. So now I've got it honed down to like I can do it all in a day. They're just like on this app.
That's so cool.
In the beginning, it was just this laborious process of trying to get currency from one to another, and then lots of the receiving individuals were being charged massive fines and not even getting that much. And so there was all this. It was just very, very difficult. Then you've got like language barriers. So majority of the connections initiated were on email, sometimes phone call and that kind of thing. So just language barriers, so now, just much more careful with like using translators or like seeking support from like interpreters or translators or like BSL interpreters, so like sign language, all these kind of things. So it allows me to be able to access and communicate with the people involved in the best possible way. So there's all that, and then there's just all the paperwork, as we mentioned earlier. But now the most pressing logistical issue is transporting the dress. So
how big and how heavy is it?
So the weight of the dress is 6.8 kilograms, which is actually, I think, less than what it feels like, because I'm obviously carrying it a lot. It feels like a lot heavier. So usually I bring the dress by hand to the countries. It's just much easier. It's much easier than trying to navigate anything else. So there have been venues that use couriers, which are great, but it's so expensive. Like I just got a quote to get the dress to Australia and back, not even thinking about the internal transport, just literally to Australia and back for £20,000. Yeah. This is insane. So what museum can afford that? So there's all these kind of logistical issues all the time. So most of the time I do the bringing and the taking, but actually I love that because I get to install the dress, I get to meet the communities. I often do like workshops and presentations and that kind of thing. But I have kids and I'm a single mum, so there's that payoff as well. So I can't ever do anything too long. So like 10 years, that kind of thing.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. So much fun to actually just take the dress with you. Like, you know, this is your companion on this trip and just take it along. Yeah.
It's always an adventure. So because very few, I think musicians might try and bring a cello or something on the plane. Otherwise you don't ever see like a large, and the dress has her own seat. So it always causes this massive spectacle within first of all, the airport, because everyone keeps telling me to go and check my bag in, and I have to keep saying I've got 2 tickets. The dress is going on the seat.
God.
Yeah. So it's so slow to even get through the airport because everyone wants to stop me. Finally on the plane, then we have the whole issue of the stewardesses. They have to, by law, buckle the box into the seat. So then we have to get extra seat belts, and then everyone in the plane's like, what's going on? You know, what is it? So then I end up doing like a whole PR thing, chat to the plane, show them pictures, give them the website address. They're all looking at it on their phones.
That's hilarious.
I bring like loads of business cards with me when I travel, because everyone just then wants business cards, and it's like when I get to the place, I'm just so exhausted, so relieved that it's okay, but it's slow. One of the curators in America hand picked up the dress from the preceding venue, and I thought that I'd given her enough information as to how the process goes, but she was pretty traumatized afterwards. She's just like, I cannot believe how stressful that was. I was stopped at every place. They had to search and all this. And I was like, yeah, it is really good. So then
can you even buy a ticket for a dress?
Yeah, you can. So it's called, they call it, it's got a specific word. It's basically like an extra seat. Sometimes the airline will give it to you at a discounted price, but mostly they don't. So yeah, it's I learned about how to do it through just Googling how double bass players and cellists move their instruments around, because they don't want to check it in either. They want to have it on the plane because they're so valuable. So it's a similar thing.
Oh my God, that's fascinating. That's really cool. So cool. Okay, my last question to you is, I mean, I can keep going on talking about this, but my last question to you is about where you see this headed. Like, what is the next 10 years looking like for you?
So I've literally last week handed in with my co-writer the content for the book, which we've been working on for the last 4 months. So that's what's going on at the moment, is the book, which has been many years in the pipeline. The funding and the publisher all came through last year. So that's very, very exciting. And that will be telling the story of the dress, but also unpicking lots of the wider themes that the dress brings up for people. So there's like finding voice and empowerment and feminism and all these really important topics. So I'm really excited about that. And all going well, will be released at the end of May this year. So it's all happening. So aside from that, I'm really focusing now on preservation and documentation of the project. So while the dress just travels and does her thing, I want to make sure that it's just completely documented in all ways, so that once the dress is no longer able to travel in the way that she is now, that people can still access the whole garment. So the next thing I'm working on is the digital archive of all the embroideries. So all going well, I'm being supported by a local university in England to, like in so much detail, go through every single embroidery, like document, archive, and create this whole kind of library, which will be accessible via the website, which is, for study and things, because lots of institutions and artists and conservators are very interested in, like, the academic side of the dress and preservation of it. So I need to be able to kind of give that information. And then the final piece of the jigsaw is the film, which is in process. So it's got, I think it's about probably nearly 200 hours of footage from the last 4
Wow.
years. Yeah. So we've got another 2 years of really exciting exhibitions that I think need to go in the film.
Yeah.
So we're going to wait to do the final edit until about 2027, 28. So then that will just bring everything together in the best possible way. And then I need to figure out where the dress is going to rest. Because, conservation wise, she can't keep going like this. It's a big journey. So I reckon by 2030, she needs to be installed somewhere. So either there are various places in England that I could imagine her going, but I'm also quite keen to just build my own museum for her, because I and the Royal School of Needlework are really interested and keen to help me do it. And a big part of what I would love to do is keep this whole community element there. So have like workshop space and just keep inviting people to embroider and connect and collaborate, as well as having like a beautiful gallery and cinema for all the films. And everything. So we'll see.
That would be so beautiful.
Yeah, it would be really lovely. Really nice.
Yeah. Oh my God. Thank you so much, Kirstie, for having this conversation. I'm so excited to see what kind of unfolds from all of this. But hopefully the next time you're in India or if you're in the US, I'd love to, take a look at the dress, but also meet you in person. That would be really nice.
I'll definitely keep in touch and keep you posted on that. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Where can our listeners follow you for updates?
So the website, everything's on the website. So it's reddressembroidery.com. I'm also on Instagram and on Facebook. You can follow links from the website for all of those as well.
Yeah.
I use Instagram really regularly. Everything's very updated. And if you're interested to see the dress, there's an exhibition section on the website, which is always updated, and that will give you all the info and where to see the dress and how and all those kind of things.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you. And I wish you all the best with what you do with the red dress.
Thank you so much for inviting me to come and speak. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, thank you.
Wherever you are in the world, having a film crew and a big red dress coming to your house, it's such a kind of unusual experience. They had to get permission for us to be there. It was like, oh gosh, this is quite a privilege. It's another beautiful example of how the dress has managed to get rid of a border. So this is the bodice, and then here we have Afghanistan and Lebanon. These are the refugees in the refugee camp. So they all use embroidery as a way of helping them get their lives back together, empowering themselves, earning a living and finding support. So here's the dress, and we have panels here from, the bottom one is from Sweden, and this lady is a violinist, but she embroiders as well, and she used to use wool. Here we have Rwanda, women recovering from war. They call it From Darkness to Light. This is DR Congo in Africa, and these women are recovering from civil war, and these are the words they now feel they have gained through their embroidery. To go back to the countries that are represented on the dress, to let them hold the fabric, try on the dress. It makes you bigger, it spreads you out. You feel very special wearing it. Yeah, empowering, I'd say, is probably the word.
Embroidery again and again and again keeps being this huge role, this pivotal role, providing skills and income But more importantly, it's community and love and support, and being able to sit in a room with other women who have been through similar and being able to support each other. I kind of think there's very little more important than that in life. It's very, very clear to me that it's about now getting the stories and images out into the open to people to see. These women deserve it.